Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're watching the Chicken Box from. Welcome to the Chicken Box. It's another great day in the neighborhood, another great day, and just in your life. Have you just took a moment just to be grateful and thankful for today? Because if you're hearing my voice, you are having a great day amidst all those surrounding troubles and problems you think you have. If you're able to breathe, eat, dress yourself, and just take a moment to breathe and be thankful, then you're having a great day. I'm your host, Kevin Impeccable Peck, and this is the Chicken Box. If you're from Baltimore, you already know what it is: full wings, greasy fries. I think I'm going to start eating before this show because every time I say this, I want a chicken box. Man, and if not, this is a place where we get to speak our truths, no matter what it is. We have different topics every week, and we have different thought leaders and different tastemakers, and just all kinds of interesting and exciting topics that come. And I'm going to be talking about today Black people versus math, or all this math. Now, that has not been an exciting, for some, it might be exciting. They might like the numbers, but in school, a lot of people really didn't like math too much. You know, the Chicken Box is powered by the oldest Black business in Maryland, and maybe one of the oldest Black businesses in the country, the Afro American newspaper, which is over 131 years, working on 132. I want to introduce to you, he's been on the Chicken Box before. He is now a friend of the Afro family, Mr. Akil Parker, CEO of All This Math. Akil, are you with us? Yes.
Yes, here I am. Here I am.
We had to add him to the stage. How are you today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back on here, back on this platform.
Philly's finest.
Yeah. Well, been in Philly for about 20 years, but raised by Baltimore. Be more
Okay.
raised me.
Well, you'll be more. Okay. You know what?
Yeah,
I stand corrected. Be more's finest, who just happens to live in Philly.
yeah.
All this math. In case you missed the episode before when he came on, just get out. I could read your bio and tell all the great accolades, but man, why don't you tell me what inspired you to even come up with this name and let people know what you do.
Well, I'm just a brother out here trying to improve the relationship between the Black community and mathematics generally, because I've been able to see through my teaching career as a math teacher on a high school level, and more recently on the collegiate level, that mathematics is really at a foundation of a lot of the problems and the challenges that we have, are like deficiencies, our collective deficiency in mathematics. And as a person that has like also experienced some of those deficiencies in the past, that has been able to like develop a stronger skill set in math, I just want to like share that with our people and just level the playing field, and also like so our children and future generations will be able to see the world through a more mathematical lens and be able to problem solve, because that's really the key. Like when we think about like the idea of math being irrelevant, I think it's because a lot of times, and it's really due to the way it's taught. It's taught like ineffectively a lot of times, because a lot of times as teachers, we just focus on the equation on the board and making sure the student knows how to solve the equation, but we don't spend enough time showing how this equation is directly relevant to something in their everyday life that they experience in their everyday life, or a problem that they can figure out dealing in their everyday life. And we don't really show that. So people don't know that math is really a way to develop problem solving ability that you can apply in any and every situation. And it really just helps also develop our critical thinking ability and our analytical reasoning ability. And I mean, that gets into, why people do stupid things in traffic. Like some people are just rude and inconsiderate, but other people, like, they don't mean no harm. They just lack critical thinking ability to think consequentially, or think like, well, if I cut over into this lane, like, that actually might cause an accident, because they haven't been trained to think, in certain ways. So I see it all as like connected to math, and math being the foundation of so many things, and a lot of things that we do take interest in, such as like financial literacy, or sports, and things of that nature. Like math is really at the root of a lot of those things. So I just really want just our people to just start to embrace math and run towards it instead of running away from it. Because even when we run away from it, that's due to like a programming. Like every time I hear a person say, I never was good at math, or I always hated math, I always wonder, like, well, who was it? It's almost like a, who hurt you type thing, because
Right,
a lot of
right,
us, we do experience academic trauma, and educational trauma, like from classroom experiences, and then they just get compounded over and over. And then, a lot of times we think we're bad at math when we really not even that bad, but it's like the metrics that we're using to judge, how good we are, how bad we are really a lot of times not even valid, because you might be in class as a middle school student or a high school student comparing yourself to somebody like, maybe one of my kids. Like, I've been a math teacher for 20 years. So I had my children. I got an 18-year-old son at Morgan right now, college freshman. I had him doing basic algebra at age 6 because I
mm,
knew he could handle it and I knew how to teach it.
right.
So same thing with my daughter Asada, who you'll see in a lot of my YouTube channel videos. I had them doing math real early, doing algebra real early. So if you don't have that background and you're in class with one of my kids, and then you look at them, and the teacher puts up a brand new type of problem y'all never seen before in class, and then my son is like running through it, or my daughter is running through it with no problem, and then you sitting up there totally confused and dazed and confused, and then you look at them like, oh, see, it must be something wrong with me. It's like, no, it's nothing wrong with you. You just don't have the head start that student had. So a lot of us, I think, we walk around because we had that experience in school, and we didn't know that. We thought, we went into the classroom thinking it was a level playing field, not realizing that no, it wasn't a level playing field. Some people had tutors, which I highly recommend. Some people did summer programs or Saturday programs where they were like, learning the curriculum beforehand, so they're seeing it in class for the second or third time, whereas you come into class, you might be seeing it for the first time. So, there's a lot of that. And then we become adults and we just kind of carried that burden with us, like all these years, thinking that we're bad at math. And, really, you probably wasn't really that bad at math. You just might not have, had certain experiences that made you feel like you could be good at it.
Absolutely. So, welcome to the Chicken Box. Hey, Joel, thanks for tuning in. Just share. We're talking about math. One of our favorite subjects. Maybe it's definitely Akil Parker's favorite subject.
It's my
But
jam. It's my
I
jam.
like it, because you in your lane. You know what I'm saying? You could tell when a person is in their lane because they're gonna light up when they talk about what they do, right? So it's gonna be a passion. And so maybe, do you feel that if the parent had a little problem with math, or never really grabbed the concept, or always put out there in the atmosphere that they didn't like it, that it trickled down when it came time to teach the toddler or the youth, they didn't start them off with any math? What are you finding out there? Uh, in our I guess let's start from home first, right? And then we can go to what happens once they go to preschool and kindergarten and those things.
I see that a lot. I even coined a term for that. I call it intergenerational mathematical poverty. How we pass that on. Like a lot of us, we pass that on to our children. That kind of fear of math and that kind of like anxiety that wells up inside of us. And I think we gotta stop doing that. As hard as it may be, we gotta stop doing that,
That's
or
like
at least
parents with swimming too, huh? Who can't
yeah,
swim? It's
yeah.
kind of like
Well,
the same thing.
so my thing is, so even let's talk about that, because like I'm not afraid to admit I'm a 43-year-old man and I don't know how to swim. I like being in the water, but I plan to learn how to swim. That's the difference. I plan to learn how to swim. My children know how to swim too. Yeah, my children know how to swim. They learned on their own, doing different programs and whatnot. I wasn't able to teach them, but I still always, embrace the idea of swimming. I see it as like, this is a deficiency of mine, but it's something I still plan to do. And I hope that in my language, I never like, like talk down about swimming, or I never said like, yeah, I don't know. So don't nobody need to know how to swim. Like, no, because I think you do need to know how to swim, because you might be at the beach or at the pool, or you want to be able to enjoy yourself.
Right.
God forbid there's a situation, and you're on a boat or something and something happens, you got to know how to swim to, save your life, but even, parents, I think we have to first confront, what it is that why do we feel so uncomfortable with mathematics? We got to like deal with that trauma. Like a lot of us have experienced trauma, and that's a real thing. I'm not going to make light of it at all. Like a lot of people, like we might have had that teacher that was mean, the teacher that yelled at us, or the teacher that made you feel dumb when you got the wrong answer. Because a lot of times as teachers, especially math teachers, we don't really see the value in wrong answers and errors. Like early in my career, I didn't really see the value in errors. Like, but you really got to embrace the errors because the errors are the teachable moments.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really do as much with a right answer. It's cool. Like, you feel good about yourself. You get a right answer, but there's so much value in getting a wrong answer because it's like science, like how, like, the scientist that makes the discovery, you celebrate that scientist, but we don't ever talk about the 50,000 experiments that didn't go right, where he or she basically got it wrong, and math is the same way. Like, so, we got to start to embrace the wrong answers and kind of like, instill in our children a way, a feeling of like confidence that they can do it, and I think one of the things we can do, and this is going to sound, this is, I think, revolutionary, is, for us to like, try to learn it, no matter how old you are, whether you're 30, 40, 50, 60, try to learn it now, and that's why, that's one of, for that reason is why my company is, we're beginning to do what I call new math parent workshops, some in person, some virtually. And because I want the parents to learn, because I really want I want parents to become the primary educators, because, we say that things are supposed to start in the home, but I think a lot of times things don't start in the home because the parents aren't equipped to make them start in the home. So we got to outsource it, and we got to like fully rely on the school to provide that. The school's not equipped for that, 25 students in the room. It might be 25 different learning styles.
Right.
School really should be a place for practice, kind of like with sports, like how your child might learn basketball or football or baseball in the neighborhood and in the community or at the rec center. And then when they go to school at recess, they get to show off,
Right.
their skills and what they know how to do. Or they join the team at school so that that way they get more exposure. They get to travel around the city or the state and play other schools, but they're not necessarily primarily learning how to play basketball, football, or baseball at school. They're
Got it.
just kind of showcasing the skills that they've already developed in their community. And I think math should be the same way, really all subjects. But since we focused on math, I definitely think math should be something that we're able to teach in the household and also in the community. But that it requires more than me just saying it. So we got to like provide resources like, the YouTube channel I created and maintain, the book that I wrote, and also the new math parent workshops that I've been doing. Those are all resources meant to be able to equip and empower parents and grandparents, uncles, aunts, whoever, to be able to like really be that primary educator, in terms of
Man,
mathematics.
it is refreshing to see a brother who was passionate about math, who was willing and wanting to teach not only the kids, because I know math was my thing. I liked math, but for some reason percentages was just killing me
Mm,
back in the day until I found like a quick way to do it. You know how you try to, calculate the tip or like
yeah,
and
yeah,
how's the tax work, and until one day I found a quick way to do it that helped me do it quickly. It was like, oh, and I think a lot of times with the math, it clicks in just like that, right? It's
yeah,
kind of like a aha moment. It's like, oh, I'm trying to go around this way when I just needed to go straight through here and then go down one.
right,
But I didn't know the method, so
yeah,
I kept getting the wrong answer. But I like how you spoke on getting the wrong answer. Because we got a lot of know-it-alls everywhere, but when you go up on that board, and a lot of things about math is maybe being embarrassed to have the wrong answer. Have you found that in your classroom?
definitely, definitely. I mean, and that was one of my problems as a student, being embarrassed to have the wrong answer. So like, a lot of times you don't volunteer or you don't try. Like if you don't, because that's the only way to guarantee that you don't get a wrong answer is if you don't try.
Right.
It's kind of like, you go out to the bar, you go out to the party or whatever, and like you can't get shot down by the girl if you don't even try to talk to her, so it's like,
Oh
you
yeah,
know
we used to have used to have a 10 rule effect. We gonna ask at least 10. That's how math applies to like trying to holler, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
So
one of my friends used to say, "Go ugly early and avoid the rush." So he always, so he just said, whoever the ugliest girl in his mind, I'm not calling anybody ugly, and he would go dance with her like she was the queen of
Oh
of
man.
Baltimore. But that was his thing. He got that out the way, and then and he said that gave him his confidence. So I guess learning, knowing that you can do math, because you said it applies to life too, uh, can help out with confidence too. Have you found that to be uh, impactful in the students' confidence as they really get a grasp on some of these math principles?
Yeah, because as soon as you start getting more correct answers, then you start to feel like you can get more correct answers, and then you'll even try certain problems, and or you'll try different methods that you might not be 100% clear on, but you'll feel like, well, let me try this, because a lot of times, like if we don't get enough correct answers, then we won't even try like to experiment with other steps and other processes, and and again, like I said, math is like similar to science. You just got to kind of try things out and kind of like make assumptions, and then but then over time you start to memorize the procedures and the processes, and then you memorize the steps and of the algorithm, and hopefully you also have a conceptual understanding of why does this method work, or like what
You
is.
said, you said a key word there, algorithm, right?
Yeah, so
But
just
everything seems like it's an algorithm, but nobody knows how to calculate these algorithms except the people who make the algorithm. Can you explain the algorithm?
well, I mean, basically, like, like if you think about long division, like from back in the day, elementary school long division, like just the steps in that process. Like, you first, you go to the first number in the dividend, and they see if, the divisor can divide into that. If it can, then you do it. And then you multiply, so it's like a three-step process, like divide, multiply, subtract, and then drop the next number down, next digit down, and that's the algorithm. So that's like just the steps in the process, that you can just memorize. Same with solving equations, solving multi-step equations. Your whole goal is to isolate the variable on one side of the equal sign, and there's like a step-by-step process that you go by in order to do that. So memorizing the algorithms is very important. I mean, there's an algorithm for like how you get ready for your day in the morning. Wake up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, take a shower, go back, dry off, put on your clothes, put on,
When
deodorant,
you
all
get
these
older,
different.
you got to stretch first.
Yeah.
Stuff
Yeah.
off the
So you got
bed.
to add stuff to your algorithm. Your algorithm gets longer, you
Got
know.
you. So yeah, it's real longer. If
So
you
yeah,
just tuned in, we mathing it up a little bit with Akil from All This Math. This is the Chicken Box powered by the Afro American newspaper. Yeah, 131 years. Yo, we got the Black Business Matters conference coming up. Um, just go to afro.com to just keep up with us. This is not a shameless plug. We are controlled and owned by African Americans for over 131 years. No one owns our editorial, our digital space. We are there to speak for the people. We have been representing the community, and we count on you. So if you find it in your heart to go get a subscription for less than two Uber Eats, $40, you can get a digital subscription. $100, you can also feel the classic newspaper as well as the digital. So go to afro.com. We'd love to have you and hear from you and just hear how you can hear your stories really too. Because Taryn put up, I think that's editor at afro.com. We'd love to have you here on the Chicken Box, and we'd love to hear your stories because sometimes the Afro is the only place that your story will be told. We are talking to Akil, All This Math, how math applies to life. I really like how you said that with problem solving. How are, well, I'm going to speak. Some kids seem like today, they don't take the time to try to solve any problem. They will just look at it and dismiss it, and that's it. How has math, or have you seen uh, kids change from really learning math, or have you seen them change?
I have, and I think this is one of the things we as parents, myself included, because I'm not immune to these challenges that we have in our community. Um, we have to be very careful about like the level of exposure our children have to technology, because what technology often does is it replaces our necessity for individual problem solving with the luxury of the technology. Like, for example, like there's so much math that we used to have to do just to figure out what time it was using an analog clock. And a
Right.
lot of that math we take for granted because it's just like, oh, well, this is just how you tell time. But when digital clocks became the standard, then it's like, okay, all you need to know how to do is read the numbers and you'll know what time it is, right?
Right.
So there are a lot of those, like, those are all teachable moments that we used to have, or like, maybe when you had to, do calculations, or like, you're trying to figure out directions to get somewhere, or how much it's going to cost to do this or do that. Now there's technology available that will do it for you. And yeah, it's convenient, but again, like just like in economics, that everything comes at an opportunity cost. So while it does make the lives of our children and ourselves more, convenient, we're able to be more efficient, so to speak, we're still losing out on opportunities to develop skills in a way that we might have just overlooked. It might have been, innate, in a sense. I always think about, not even just in terms of mathematics, and I guess this is related to mathematics, because in terms of word problems, we need to understand the definitions of words in order to be able to solve math word problems. I think about, being at Roland Park in elementary school or middle school, and we had to define vocabulary words for homework. And I had my parents had the big thick dictionary, right? That we used to use for that, right? So
Right.
we got to define 10 vocabulary words. So I'm looking, I know the alphabetical order and everything. I know how to use the dictionary. So I'm flipping through the pages. I'm looking for one word, but then I'm seeing all these words that I don't know. So I'm
Right.
like, I'm intellectually curious. So I end up looking at this word. Oh, what does that mean? And then I go to another page. I look at this one. I'm still on the way to find the actual vocabulary word that was assigned by my teacher. But in the midst of that, I might find like 7 more words. Right. So while I was trying to find one word, I found 7 more. And like, let's imagine that happened for all 10 of the words, right? So you got your original 10 words that you
Word.
define, and then an additional 70. So I just increased my vocabulary by 80 off of one assignment. Nowadays, the kids can just go Google, type in this word. Oh, boom, give me the definition. You're only getting the 10 words now. So
Right.
I'm thinking about like the compounded effect of the technology, which can be beneficial. But as I say, nothing is all good, but nothing is all bad. Nothing is all bad, but nothing is all good either. So we gotta, as parents and as a community, think about ways to replace those teachable moments. Because we often think about, like, like to your question, children kind of like shy away from problem solving because they don't have to solve problems a lot of times. They got an iPhone. Their iPhone can kind of tell them a lot of things that they need to know. So we got to figure out ways to like make up for that, because if like we want them to add an iPhone, but then it's like, okay, now that they got the iPhone and they're using it efficiently, which is really what they're supposed to do, then but how do we replace those teachable moments? How
Right.
do we replace those opportunities? So we got to be real vigilant about it, in terms of like, recreating those opportunities, or else our children will continue to like run away from problem solving. There was a book I was reading called Humble Pie. Pies and PI. It's about math, different ways in which math is relevant to our
So
everyday lives.
what is the definition of pi again? I forgot.
So pi is the ratio between the circumference, which is the perimeter around a circle, and its diameter. Diameter is like, if you imagine a circular pizza, the diameter is if you cut the pizza in half, right? That's the length from one side of a pizza to the other. So the ratio, which is it's a fraction, you divide the perimeter around the circle divided by the length across it. In any circle in the universe, no matter how big or small the circle is, it's going to be a certain number, which is 3.14, and it goes on forever and ever.
That's what I remember. The 3.14 for some
Yeah,
strange reason.
and that's why Pi Day is March 14th. Pi Day
Ah,
is March 14th.
all right.
So three to help us remember that pi is 3.14. So in the book, the author has this quote in there where he says that because people always think like, mathematicians, they just, math just comes easy to them. And it's not true. The difference is in the approach. It's like a mindset thing. Like the person that likes math, it's not that math comes easy to them, but it's that they enjoy and embrace challenges. So it's
Gotcha.
like the math is hard. It's like, yo, we got to figure this out. Okay, it's
Right.
not easy, but like some people, and I think this is how we're conditioned. I think it's a conditioning thing. Like, how do you embrace challenges? Like, do you shy away from challenges, or kind of fold, or do you just say, nah, like I like a challenge. Like I want to do something I don't want to just do stuff that's easy. Stuff that's but that's light for me to do. I want to do some things that will challenge me to grow as a person, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, you know. Um, so that's something else we got to think about in terms of math. Like math really can help us to develop our, again, not just problem solving, but how we embrace challenges. Because it's not always going to be easy. And sometimes you might have to step away from a problem because it might be too hard. You might need to think about it, or just, go do something else. And then something just might click in your head like a day later.
I
Like
like that. That sounds like a relationship. You can use math in your marriage.
you
Just
can.
like, let me count to 10.
Yeah, you definitely
Calm
can.
myself down. Let me
You
walk.
definitely can.
Let me walk away. Let me come back to it tomorrow.
Yeah,
you
you
know,
might need to do that. You might need to do that.
let me walk a mile. Let's use some math to keep this relationship together. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box. I'm hanging out with my friend Akil Parker from Baltimore, making a difference in the impact, not only in the children's lives but also in adults' lives, getting us to be more comfortable with math and just showing how math correlates with everything that you do. Now, are you a football fan or basketball fan?
More so football. I watch basketball, but I never really watched basketball as much as like, football and baseball because I didn't play basketball. I
So
played
let's talk
football
about
and baseball.
football, and
Okay.
for those football fans. So, those next gen stats, right? That deals with math. Talk about that, because something we see it pops up on the, what's the analytic? Why should we go for them 4th and 1? And so all that's math, right?
All of it. All
So,
of it.
and that seems like those data points are popping up for just about everything that we do all across I guess, the world now, right? Everything's a data point. But I think I just remember football that they were showing it and talking about it. He's running 23 seconds, I mean, an hour or whatever. Do you touch on that at all when you are teaching your math?
Yeah, in terms of like making it relevant, I'm always trying to meet the youth where they are. So if you play football, then like, all right, let's talk about your favorite player. Let's talk about their stats. Let's get into their stats. And because I want you to understand, because it's one thing for somebody like a commentator to say like this person is great or this person is not that good, but that should be grounded not in just a personal opinion, but that should be grounded in some like objectified, quantifiable statistics. But you as the listener, if you don't understand how the statistics are arrived at, then you could just be duped and just like taken advantage of. And then it's like, well, I trust this commentator. So like I trust they know what they're talking about. Well, like what if they don't? And even more important, I think, is for actual high school athletes, because they're talking about, you're talking about trying to get recruited by colleges and all these different things. And like you should know your own statistics. Cause like,
Right.
it's a lot of them, you might be a 12th grade student and you really don't understand algebra. And if you can't understand algebra, you probably can't understand statistics. Like, so you're kind of at the mercy of a coach or another person that's going to tell you, okay, this is a good number. Well, I think you would want to know, as a matter of just having self agency, well, how do I know that it's good? Well, because then what if somebody tells you, well, it's not that good? Well, how do you know that it's not that good? You're going to just take their word for it. And a lot of times data can be manipulated. Statistics can be manipulated a lot of times. So if
Mm.
you don't really know like what goes into creating the statistic, like let's say something like a quarterback rating, or something like that, like what are the different numbers that go into that? Because we'll see the number and it'll be like, oh well, we kind of make these deductions where it's like, oh well, if it's a high number, if it's like 150, we think, okay, that's a good number. But
Right.
what goes into the 150? So if
Right.
somebody else has like a 140, but like what is the calculation that's actually done and what is actually contributing to that quarterback passer rating, you know
You got
and I
me thinking right now. I'm like, I'm about to hit
yeah,
it.
because it's a formula to it. Like I don't have it memorized, but I looked it up one time in the past and I was like, okay, so you take this and this and like I think you got to add and then divide. And it's kind of like everything is like is some type of algorithm, again, an algorithm or a formula. So once you know what's inside of that formula, that algorithm, then you become a more, I guess, an educated viewer. So that really is an issue in terms of, that's an issue of media literacy,
Right.
which is an even larger conversation, because so many of us are media illiterate. So we're at the kind of mercy of, well, whatever you tell me, if we get into this like cult of personality thing where it's like this person on this media platform, I like them, or I decided that I like them. So whatever they say, I'm just going to take it as the gospel. And a lot of times people just be lying. They just be lying. There's no
Right.
better way to say it. They just be lying. And then, but we don't know they're lying.
Right. So
And we
that
can't prove
like
that they're
you
lying.
say, well, let's who got the receipts, right? Let's check it. But let me
Yeah.
just get back to this passer rating because it says an NFL passer rating formula ranges from a scale of 158.3 based on completion percentage, yards per attempt, touchdowns per attempt, and interceptions per attempt. And so then they have this. They actually have a calculator up here. Pass attempts, you would put a number, and pass completion. So those are the values that you were talking about
Mhm.
that makes that calculation. So the highest is a 158.3.
And so then, but so now that we're breaking it down, now it's like, okay, now the comparison becomes very different. Cause like, what if, like, I might have a lower, number in a certain area, but what if this person doesn't pass as much? Or what if this person is more of a running quarterback?
Right. Exactly.
So, and then sometimes it's like, sometimes the statistic doesn't really do the person justice because it's like, wow, for a person that only passes that much, like for them to have such a high rating in that area alone, that actually is like, that's very significant, but you might not, but you won't really know that. Like somebody like a Lamar Jackson, like Lamar Jackson might actually be better than what it seems like just in that number. But you won't know that until you like unpack, like, okay, what's inside that passer rating,
Right. Absolutely.
you know? So I
That's
just,
and somebody made that up. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And
Somebody just put those rules together and said, okay, here I'm gonna give you a passer rating based
right.
on that. Right. So, but that just shows you that math applies all through. I mean, and even when I said, who has the receipts?
Hmm.
We listen to somebody we know and trust. But can you read a receipt? That's math too, right? They make it
Right.
simple now for the tip. You don't even have to figure it out. They put it at the bottom of the receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like, a convenience thing, but what if they're not, what if they're, not telling the truth? And
And you
I
gotta
think,
look at speaking of that, y'all check your receipts because they are putting everything in there. It'll be an additional tip. They didn't tip you once. They got a tax on Barney's tax. Well, who's Barney? It'll be like BW tax. Like what tax is this? Sometimes you just get the bill, don't read your receipt. Sometimes you've been double charged. And there you go. Here's math again.
this also takes me to another point, which is why I think we're as a community we're up against a lot, and one of the things is it's not just the fact that our children may have certain mathematical deficiencies. We have to also consider the fact that there's a benefit to our children having mathematical deficiencies. It serves to help maintain the status quo, because if I don't understand math and I'm not that equipped at math, then it's much easier for me to be taken advantage of. It's
Mhm.
much easier for me to be exploited. Whether I'm trying to buy something, and people will rob you with a handshake and a smile. And you'll just think, oh, okay, it's cool. Like, and they'll tell you it's cool. They'll tell you this is the best deal that I can do for you. And, it's kind of like, you go to the car dealership and the first thing they ask you is like, what do you want your monthly payment to be?
Mm.
It's like, nah, I don't want to talk. Let's talk about the cost of the car, the total cost of the car. Let's start there, and then let's work backwards. Let's reverse engineer it, and then back to the monthly payment. Because you can give me a low monthly payment, but all that does is like extends out my term, right? So I'm
Mhm.
paying more interest to the bank or the finance company,
Oh
which
yeah.
is what they want anyway. But a lot of times these things don't even enter into the conversation because we don't know about it. And like the financial literacy part is cool, but you have to know how to do those calculations on your own. You should know and be able to understand those concepts,
Well,
right?
that's real good. I mean, because everybody goes to these, but at least everybody comes to a point where they buy their first car,
Yeah.
right? Or they've been with somebody who's bought a car.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
and this is why also we can't we when you hear people say things like this, we got to check these people in a loving way, right? When they say, "Oh, well, I think schools should get rid of algebra 2 and replace it with personal finance or financial literacy." I'm like, "Bro, you can't do financial literacy without algebra 2 or algebra 1, right? Because you go
so
to
you need
any
both, really.
you need both. Like you go to any personal finance textbook, you're using algebra. We talking about compound interest, which is just exponential growth and decay formulas. You're using systems of equations. Like I was a business major, I was a finance major at Morgan. all we was doing was algebra in all those classes. I took calculus, and we was doing calculus word problems that dealt with finance, that dealt with business. Like this is all like, it's not like a either or thing. It's a
Right.
both and thing. And again, math is at the foundation, And then when you think about it, if you think about it in terms of like what do the people that have higher level mathematical training, what are they doing for a living? Where are they working at? Who are they working for? A lot of times they work for government agencies. Sometimes they, may work in private industry, and they're taking their math ability to develop algorithms and understand algorithms, and they're creating algorithms which are really meant to try to maximize profit for the corporation. And oftentimes that involves being able to better manipulate us as consumers and as the masses. So when I hear parents say things
Hold
like,
on, let's put a hole right there, because you
yeah,
were saying algorithm. We were talking about car dealership. We talking about interest
mhm,
rate. We talking about you all excited because you see that shiny new car, but you'll sign anything. You in the back. Once they put you in the office, you
the
just
finance guy, oh yeah,
yeah. The
he's gonna
finance
get
guy,
you. He gonna get you.
he's cracking you in the head with everything, but you don't care because you still think about how great that car smelled, and you see yourself driving it. Did you miss all of this? You end up paying. You think it's a low interest rate, but you pay so much money when you read that agreement. But another part of it, Craig Kelly says, "Can you figure out the algorithm for my credit score?" So,
There's
so
definitely an algorithm for that.
right.
That's online. You can get that online.
So yeah. So there you go, y'all. You can get that online.
Hmm.
But that algorithm, because you pay it off and you go down. You add something on, your score goes up. It's a whole bunch of, if you're 30%, keep it below 10%. Well, no, keep it below 20%. I'll pay
Hmm.
it all off. When does credit score really matter? When you're buying a house or something, you need to get a car. But other than that, they up and down. If you watch it, you'll go crazy, right?
Yeah. And it's just important to just understand those things. But what I was saying in terms of like, so the people that have the higher level math understanding, if they're using their skill set to sometimes help companies to better, to maximize profit, which often requires them to better manipulate us, and they're using math as a tool to do that. Why would we not want our children to have the same level of understanding as the people that are working against us? And so it's almost like we're setting our children up for what we call asymmetrical warfare. It's
Mm.
like you putting your children in a position where they are bringing knives to a gunfight, because here it is, like the people that work for, because like that, people, Target hires engineers, to create, systems that will have us really feel like, well, I don't need to make a list. Once I get there, Target's going to tell me what I need. And then, that's how we are. Like, I'm guilty of that too. Like, I go into Target and I'm like, wow,
So
yeah, what
that's
do I
why
need?
guys would be like, I'm not going into those stores with my woman, because she's just gonna come out with everything in the
Yeah.
basket.
And
Not
it's
even
not,
on no list. Just I'm going in there to get one thing, and you come out with 20.
and it's not coincidental. None of that is coincidental. Like there's a lot of money at stake. So like this is an exact science. These things are figured out, in boardrooms and in back rooms, and different things are, calculated to try to, again, it's all about maximizing profit. So if math is being used to maximize the profit, like why would we not want our children to know the same level of math so that they could perhaps defend themselves against, being taken advantage of at times? And these are just, some of the things I want, parents to start thinking about. But, and I understand that, like in a lot of our math classes, we never had these types of conversations, so the stuff that we're talking about here in this
No, we
program,
didn't
like,
have teachers like you, Akil. Not many people had a math teacher like you. Hopefully, you can duplicate and train them.
yeah,
You're gonna have to have a math educational institution or course or something. They're gonna have to come out. Some more people. We need some more math teachers out there.
definitely, definitely. I want to take a moment to shout out, because you went to Poly too, right?
I went to Poly. I went to Roland Park. I went to Morgan. Every school you shouted
Every
out, I
school we
went.
went to. Similar paths, similar paths. So yeah, I want to shout out Mr. Brown at Poly and Mr. Bessick at Poly. I took Mr. Brown in the ninth grade for algebra 2, and Mr. Bessick, for geometry. Speaking of geometry, man, geometry is a lot of people, again, we don't understand the real value of geometry. Geometry is not even really about the shapes. That's just the surface level, right? But geometry is really about being able to take facts and verifiable information and use it to form a coherent argument and a
Mm.
position. And if we spend any time on social media or on the internet, you realize how many people are unable to do that. And that's why people always say, like, I'm always weary when people start off a conversation with, I feel like, and I'm like, okay, all right. So then I start like,
That-
I
That's
feel,
that's that's the person who learned how to who learned how to talk to a person, because the person said I feel they're and they're
that's like what
they're
empathy. They're trying to empathy.
they're explaining their pain at the moment instead of saying you, because once I say you, then
You
it
become
feels like
defensive.
somebody's pointing at it, and then like, who are you talking to? You know what I mean? But
Right.
when you say, I felt very disappointed about how you handled me, Mr. Bank of America. Well, I'm not saying any name, but in Mr. Organization or corporation, and it made me feel like this. Now, go ahead, do what you were saying. What happens when you hear that feel?
Well, sometimes people are talking about things that are more concrete, of a more concrete nature, you know. Um, and they start, they might say, I feel like, because it's nothing wrong with feelings. Feelings are very important, but oftentimes there's too much of a leaning toward feelings. And it's like, okay, well, my opinion, becomes the fact,
Mm,
right? Where what geometry does is, especially with geometric proofs are like, all right, prove that this angle is in this triangle is equal to that angle in that triangle. And then, you got to go through a process, like a step-by-step process. And you got to use actual facts to arrive at that conclusion.
mm.
Instead of just saying, well, I feel like, this angle is the same measure as that angle. Like, why? Well, it's just my intuition. Like, well, I mean, intuition can only get you but so far, right?
Right, because your floor is gonna be slanted.
There you go. There you go.
When you build your house. Yeah, I thought it was right. No, you leaning home. Why are we leaning in your house?
Yeah. So the numbers didn't add up, So, so
Hey,
it's
yeah, math is all around us when you really think about it.
all
You
around
can't
us.
use a measuring stick. You know what I mean? You can't hang a picture. You can't level something out. You can't.
Yeah.
It applies when you think about it, y'all. It applies and
Yeah.
and
That
just
reminds me of something.
everything in life. Go ahead, talk to
That
me.
reminds me of something else too, like, because there's often pushback with not needing to learn math because people say, well, I got a calculator. I got an iPhone. My iPhone got a calculator, or my Android got a calculator. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But what we fail to take into consideration when we say that is that before you use the calculator, you have to know what the proper equation is. Because once you figure, if I give you the equation, like let's say you're trying to hang a picture and you're trying to measure, because you want the picture to be in the center of the wall. You first got to know, okay, well, I need to know the width of the wall. And then I need to know, okay, how wide the frame is, right? And I need to figure out, okay, what should be the distance from the center of the picture to the left side of the wall and to the right side of the wall. So I first got to know that. And then then I know, okay, well, I got to do this calculation, but you had to first know what the equation was.
Right.
The calculator won't tell you the equation. So you do have to know some type of, you have to have some type of level of mathematical proficiency to know what numbers to put in the calculator. And then another thing is you got to know how to use the calculator properly. A lot of people, you never learn how to use the calculator properly because,
Man, you
there's
ever turn for those who have an iPhone, you ever turn your calculator on the side?
to make it scientific. That's
Man,
how you
that
make it
thing has so
scientific.
many buttons on it. Some
Yeah,
people probably didn't even know that. You looking at your calculator, unlock it, and then
is
turn
that
it
up?
sideways. You
Yeah,
want to see more buttons than, than you ever saw before. And a lot of them have to do with math, and a lot of them could become intimidating.
they could be, but that's if you're not exposed, if you don't have a lot of exposure, you haven't seen those.
Or do you use it? Because I'm
Yeah,
looking at all these buttons right here. Can y'all see them?
like got your
Like,
sine, your trig ratios,
yeah,
your sine, cosine, and
2 minutes.
tangent.
Yeah, all of these buttons.
Yeah,
The rad and the
radians
skip,
versus degrees, all that.
all of these. Let me turn mine back to the other way, so I can just add, subtract, divide, and multiply. But no, but there are science scientific calculators. I think in certain classes back in the day, you had to buy that calculator. You had to have that scientific calculator to do the math in those particular classes. So if you just joined us, we're hanging out with Akil Parker. This is the Chicken Box. We are talking about all this math. That is the company that he started. He started from Baltimore. We heard all of his Baltimore schools move up to Philadelphia, and is taking all this math around the world and country. Follow him if you're having trouble with math. I think, do you do online tutoring?
We do online tutoring. Myself currently, we're about to build out a team of tutors, in the future. But currently, it's myself and my son. My son, I mentioned him earlier, he's a college freshman, but he started tutoring with the company when he was a high school freshman. So it was a way for him to help the community and also practice his own skills, because you really learn something when you got to teach it to somebody else. So it's he's at Morgan now, still tutoring.
Go Bears.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And speaking of like what you mentioned earlier about, training teachers, we are doing some work with this teaching framework that I developed called Hystematics.
Oh
And
yeah, I was going to get into that. Let's talk about it.
yeah, so I'm doing a Hystematics summer program in partnership with the William J. Watkins Senior Educational Institute. That's actually my father's nonprofit.
First of all, you got to tell people what hystematics are, because they probably
Yeah.
heard that word and they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, so Hystematics is and also let me shout out BCYF, the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund, also, because they're also we received support from BCYF to provide this programming. Hystematics is when I use history to teach math, and I also use math to teach history. So and what I do that in several different ways, but in this particular program, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking different texts that I think Black people should be familiar with, and we're going to be using those texts as math textbooks. And I'm going to be creating math word problems, from those books. So the books will be that we're using this summer will be Autobiography of Malcolm X, Assata Shakur's autobiography, Black Power by Kwame Ture and Charles V. Hamilton, also The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, and also the autobiography of Marshall Eddie Conway, the Black Panther Party member who just passed away, like I want to say last year or the year before, who was from Baltimore. So we're going to be using those books as math textbooks as a way to better. Well, first it makes the math more relatable, and it makes it more entertaining, right? And it also like kind of provides a storyline to the equations and the different percentage calculations that we're going to be doing, and it also is a means to help the children to understand, okay, this is how you use math, because I always think about like how you could have a child in 7th grade or 8th grade, and they got a math class first period, they got a history class second period. So in math class in first period, the teacher's going over percentages. The child may not have no idea what's going on, may not understand percentages, or whatever, right? But then and they gets exposed in the math class. But then the second period, they go to history class and they have to read a paragraph. Now the child may be proficient at reading, right? Recognize the syllables and words and syntax and things like that. They read a sentence that says, perhaps like during the Mayafa, transatlantic slave trade, 48% of Africans were brought to the Caribbean. They may read that with no problem, but they don't understand the concept of percentages. So then the question becomes, now the history teacher may not know, they don't know the concept of percentages, but the math teacher knows, but the history teacher don't know. But if they don't understand the concept of percentages, then how can they really understand that sentence that they just read in class if they don't really know what the significance of 48% is?
Of what?
Right, of how many people are together, or even just the fact that, wow, that's almost half.
Right,
it's almost 50%.
Right, where'd you pull 48% out of? I mean,
right. All of those things. Who
counted all of the slaves anyway? And where was that documented?
All that information. Yeah. So, right. I mean, you get into like, Du Bois's, PhD work, the suppression of the transatlantic slave trade, and, those types of things.
She says she loves it. She said her son is a mechanical engineering at Tuskegee University grad.
Okay.
I know Q. Congratulations, Dwayne. You have achieved graduation from Tuskegee. My nephew's all going there on a baseball scholarship, which you definitely got to know. He said he loves math, and I think more kids need support outside the classroom. Thank you for your insight, Akil.
Definitely, definitely. And speaking of Tuskegee, like, shout out to, Booker T. Washington, who I think is historically is a very misunderstood black man, even if he had some contradictions, but I think he did a lot of great work, for our people. And also George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver is one of my influences and inspirations for like the work that I do in terms of like trying to bring math to the community. Once I learned from reading one of his biographies that one of the things he did was because he was teaching science on the campus at Tuskegee back in the day, but there was a lot of people in the rural areas around the campus that didn't have the resources to attend the college. So him and Booker T. Washington devised a plan to try to bring that education to the community. So he had like a horse and buggy that he would go out on the weekends, and he
So
would
he had a mobile classroom, huh?
He had a mobile classroom. He would take it into the rural areas and basically
Right.
teach science, basically in the community. So I remember reading about that, and I was like, yeah, I need to do the same thing. So like that's why I do like a lot of the workshops I do, and like I have the YouTube channel, which is like free access to math tutoring, the book, and also the summer program. The summer program, the link for the application to the summer program is in the
How
chat.
long is the summer program?
It's 5 weeks long. It's going from July 8th to
Woo.
August the 9th. Monday
Now,
through
I'm only
Thursday.
saying woo because if you're a kid and you got your summer break, you're like, man, I am not trying to be in no math class.
But here's the thing about it, it's so it's going to be beneficial for some people. It's only 2 hours long. So we got a middle school cohort and a high school cohort. So the middle school is coming from 9 to 11. Right. And then they're dismissed. They can have some lunch and then they're dismissed. The high schoolers come in from 12 to 2. They come in a little early. They can get some lunch too. So it's 2 hours. 2 hours. We're going to be, discussing, some of these books, some excerpts from these books, and just doing math at the same time. We're working on potentially being able to offer some trips on Fridays. That has not been finalized yet. But yeah, it's 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day.
Go to your website for this information.
Well, there's a link that I put in. They can find it on my social media. Definitely, it's on my social media. The application is on my social media, but also there's a link in the chat here.
Is this it?
Well, that's my website. That's my website. But they can go to my social media to find the application as well.
Okay. Yeah. Go to All This Math. You guys need to check out his website anyway. You know what I did when I knew I was going to take trigonometry at Poly the summer before. I went to a math like kind of camp like that for a few weeks, and when I got to school, I killed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the. So I agree. Getting that exposure.
Yeah. It's like athletics.
Before you take the class, right?
Yeah, it's like athletics, like top tier athletes. If they have the resources, they'll have they'll go to the camps and they'll go to the clinics,
right?
And they'll work out. After they finish practicing with their team,
right?
They'll go work out individually with somebody,
right.
And there's a parallel between that and getting math tutoring. It's really the same thing. So when you go in class, because you're not the teachers don't really have. With the scope and sequence and with the time constraints that teachers have in public, charter, and even private schools, the teacher may not have enough time to really be able to drill down and go deep enough for you to get a serious understanding of a topic. So you can't just.
And then everybody has a different
school
learning style too. So
exactly.
So that might.
And some students will benefit if they end up in a classroom with a teacher that has a teaching style that exactly coalesces with their learning style.
Right.
But you got to kind of just get lucky, but if you're not that student, like if this teacher's teaching style doesn't match up with my learning style, then you got to figure it out some other kind of way. Whether you go to my YouTube channel, which I highly recommend. We got content from arithmetic all the way up to calculus 1. And also I infuse all of my videos with Black history. So, because that's one of my, major interests, Black history. And that's how my classrooms are set up. My students always tell me like I should have been an African-American history teacher, and I just tell them like, I appreciate that. But, I can give you both. You can get right here at the same time in the same place. So yeah, there's that. The book I mentioned is How to Use All This Math, Volume 1. And that's available on Amazon. And this is really a guide. It's a tool for parents. because I want our children to be prepared for math class. Because a lot of times our children go into math class cold. They go into school cold, right? And they're not prepared for a lot of the vocabulary that they get exposed to, a lot of the concepts and topics. So what I do is I take everyday activities and I show you how to um take those everyday activities that we whether it's your children going into the kitchen to get a snack or a juice, or whether you're riding around in a car to run errands, or different things. And I'm showing you how to use that as a math lesson, as an algebra lesson, an arithmetic lesson, a geometry lesson. So that way, when your child gets to sixth grade and the teacher introduces a unit on unit conversions, a lot of children get intimidated by that because they're like, whoa, what is this? And it's this too much. There's a lot going on. I've never seen this before. But then it's like, oh, I've been doing this in the house with my mom and my dad since I was 8.
Right.
It's like, again, just like sports, like I talked about sports earlier. We're not intimidated when it's time for recess because, oh, we playing basketball today. Cool. I love playing basketball. I been playing basketball around the way my whole life. So
Right.
when it's time for recess to play basketball, that there's no anxiety associated with that. So
Right.
what I want us to be able to do is, I don't want there to be anxiety around math.
So Erica Evans, thank you for your comment. Says you have a virtual option for the camp.
Unfortunately, we do not for this camp. Now in the future, that is something I'm going to consider. And I may do some virtual programming of with Hystematics during the school year. So definitely stay on the lookout for that. Please follow us on social media. Keep tabs on what we're doing. All this math on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or X, whichever we want to call it these days. I'm not sure, but
What do we want to call it? Don't worry about it. Let's call it the Afro. Look out for the Afro.
yeah.
Shout out to the Afro, y'all. This is a Chicken Box is powered by the Afro American newspaper.
See, in honor of being on the Chicken Box, I pulled out the Chinese store half and half container.
If you don't know what a half and half is, that's sweet tea, y'all, with lemonade. Because if you come down south, it'll be called an Arnold Palmer.
tell them a little. Make sure you tell them a little bit of ice, because they sometimes try to get over. Give you a whole cup, too much ice.
Right. That cup. Let me see that cup again. That cup takes you back, right? That's not even a cup. That's like it's a gravy container. Look, it has been wonderful, Akil. We got to meet in person. Hanging out with you on all this math. You always are able to even get me when you're talking. My mind is going on 1,000. I'm listening, but I think I'm creating an algorithm in my own mind. But you get to think about how math is really all around you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just with your money, with finance, with investing, and we need to educate and teach. And it's not going to all happen in the school. And for our kids to be better than we were, if that's your goal, you're going to have to stop being selfish and take some time from your favorite program and make your child your favorite program until they're adults. So, teach them how they should go. So when they get old, they won't depart. This has been a wonderful experience. We get on the box at the end. I'm going to get on the box first. And basically I want to say math is the key to just being able to persevere through life in a way that helps you not only challenge yourself, but really understand everything that's going on around you. You'll miss a flight if you don't know how to tell time. You won't know how to balance your money. You'll be getting an overdraft, and you'll be like, well, what's an overdraft? And you just keep going and charging that card, and the bankers keep taking that $35, and you don't understand. If you're a tither and you don't understand how to calculate a percentage, you can't even get your money circulating. Mm-hmm. You can't even measure anything. You can't hang a picture. You can't even get the right belt size for your waist. The bra size. You just, math is just a fluent part of your life. And the more you embrace it, I think the easier it'll be. And I challenge all parents to not just say, man, I don't remember that math, because that's what we say when the homework comes home, because homework is really supposed to be practice, and the child is really supposed to do it on their own, so that the teacher can gauge if in fact they're being effective, not for you to do all of the problems.
Right, right.
Hey, you came back with it right. Well, who figured it out? But was it you or was it, was it the parent? But I just think that we need to really pour into our children, um, because they are our future generation, especially in the Black community. When we know there's so many systems set up against us, that we have to be for us, and that's the only way we're going to push forward. So I'm off the box. Akil Parker, all this math, second time on the chicken box. You always get to bring a new light. You got hystematics, right?
Systematics. Yeah. So
Hystematics,
check
history,
out
and
the program.
right, history and math together.
We're live in Baltimore this summer. In Baltimore
Right,
this summer.
you got
5
it.
weeks.
You're on the box, brother. Final words. You got the last word.
Um, help me help you. I want to empower and equip our parents to be able to help their children. I want y'all to be able to help your children. I know it's frustrating when the homework comes home, you don't know how to do it. It's not the way you did it. We did it 30 years ago or 40 years ago. I get it. That's cool. I have resources so that you can help your children. And also I want to help your children, feel more comfortable. I want to help their mental health, because it's one thing to be a child and sit in class and be confused in math class and feel like, wow, like, like if I don't get it here, I'm just not going to get it. And then kind of have this defeatist attitude as a child. But it's different if your child knows, you know what, when I go home, my dad can help me with this. My mom can help me with this. My uncle, my aunt, my grandparents, even they can help me with it. That's the reality that I want to create for our community. I want the
Absolutely.
children to have that confidence that when I go home, there's somebody in that house, at least one person that can help me with this math homework, no matter what it is. So that's why I create the resources that I created, the YouTube channel, the book, How to Use All This Math Volume 1. I'm doing parent workshops, because I really want us to, be able to use math as a tool and, something that we can run toward and not feel the need to run away from it. So yeah, check
Absolutely.
us out.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I love it. I love your passion. People are when you find your passion, you're going to make an impact in life. If you are not in your right position, find it, because you wasting your life by building somebody else's dream when you should be following your own dream wherever it is. Until next week, man, call a senior. They'd love to hear from you. Don't text them. Don't text them. Call them and say, "Hey, I was thinking about you," and they will believe me. It'll make their whole month. Just 5 seconds of your time to call a senior and just tell them that you were thinking about them. Until next week, God willing, and Kill, of course, we appreciate you. Roland Park, Polly, Morgan, shout out to all those Baltimore schools and the great products that they're pushing out. We need more teachers like you. We need to pay you guys more money so that we can get some better teachers as well. So until next week, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for our new digital director, who's or editor who's backstage just hanging out, learning how to run a show. You'll hear from him in the weeks to come. And for Taryn, our producer, and everybody else that makes it happen. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And the Afro has 4-day work weeks. In case you ever think about coming, go to afro.com. See, we might have something that fits in for you. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.